Hey everybody, I'm Joshua Orro, the Mustang Prince, and welcome to Mustang Prince Orro Reports. Now, so far, it's been about 2 years since I had a video chat with Jodie Benson, whom, may I remind you, is the most inspirational actress that I've ever looked up to. Heck, she said it herself during a Q&A that she's been a very huge inspiration for countless people. Not only for those with autism and Asperger's syndrome, but also for those with disabilities with their speech and their walking. However, I must mention that Jodie Benson is not the only idol I look up to. I also look up to Walt Disney, Dr. Seuss, Jim Carrey, Idina Menzel, Tim Burton, Tara Strong, along with Susan Egan, Richard Rich, and several others. And on the topic of idols, for today's episode, we're going to go over one where Princess Sofia meets her idol, who happens to be the leader of a merry band of good deed doers. So, airing on television on July 15th, 2015, this is Carol of the Arrow. Now, let's get started. In this episode, while picking grapes, Sofia meets her idol, Carol of the Arrow, and her merry band, and she's invited to join if she can do one good deed by the end of the day, which unfortunately makes her second in command, Jane, very jealous. But while trying to do a good deed, Sofia has to hide the fact that she's a princess after she overheard Carol talk about how unhelpful the royals are. So, what are my thoughts on this episode? Well, in my eyes, this was another memorable episode, although it does feel pretty familiar. But for now, let's move on to Mustang notes. Now, the moral of this episode is be proud of who you are, no matter what anyone else thinks, which is another lesson that I know about, since, as I stated before, I value all people, no matter what color or religion they are, or no matter where they come from. Plus, this episode states that when it comes to doing a good deed, it's not always easy, but it's always worth it in the end. Which makes me think back to my Eagle project from 2009, where me and several of my friends from Troop 604 fixed Glen Yermo Elementary School's USA blacktop map. As for the animation, well, the CGI animation by Toei is absolutely excellent. And I think the setting in the Enchantian Forest looks very beautiful. However, I noticed that there are a couple writing errors. For example, Sofia claims that she doesn't know how to use an arrow, despite the fact that she took archery class during the Finding Clover episode. Also, Bailiwick does not notice that Sofia took off her tiara until he finds it in her grape basket. Also, the reason why I think this episode feels pretty familiar to me is that it kind of reminds me of the Rhyme Cat Rescue from Clifford's Fun with Rhymes. Think about it. The main character is a young girl with a unique animal. She gets tested to do something challenging to see if she's good enough to join a club. She later gets dismissed by a rude character, and she proves herself worthy by rescuing someone from the river. Plus, I must mention that this is the first time someone other than Amber becomes jealous of Sofia. And of course, this is the episode that I mentioned in my previous blog, which used Gwen's grape juicer invention. And now, let's talk about the episode's song number, Any Deed for Those in Need, sung by Carol and her merry band. Now, this is another one of my favorite songs in the series. To me, it has a great message about performing a good deed, and I like the instrumental music that plays in the background and the merry choreography. However, my favorite part of the song is when Carol tells Sofia about the time when she was a young lass, when she helped a chipmunk get acorns and rescued a cat from a tree using her bow and arrows. And now, let's talk about the characters and their voice actors. Princess Sofia is voiced by Ariel Winter, whom was young Kairi in the Kingdom Hearts game series, Marina in Jake and the Neverland Pirates, young Trixie in Speed Racer, Marlene in the complete version of Final Fantasy VII Advent Children, Penny Peterson in DreamWorks' Mr. Peabody and Sherman, and Smurf Lily in Smurfs the Lost Village. In my eyes, according to her mother, Queen Miranda, Sofia is a sweet and helpful princess. Plus, she's also smart and brave. However, even though it was a lie, I find the idea of Sofia posing as a villager to join Carol's band pretty similar to how Mulan dressed up like a man named Ping when she took her father's place in the army. Next is Sofia's horse, Minimus, voiced by Eric Stonestreet, who voiced Duke in the Secret Life of Pets movies. Now, I still stand by that Minimus has been greatly improving as a flyer, and in my eyes, during this episode, I think he's a decent supporting character, giving Sofia advice and helping her do a good deed, even though Sofia had to conceal his wings to make the merry band believe that Minimus is a plain ordinary horse. Also, I found it pretty funny when Minimus said that he pretended to be a unicorn, which left him with a hoof full of heartache. Next is Carol of the Arrow, the leader of the merry band of Helping Hands Good Deeds, voiced by Vivica A. Fox, whom I remember from Independence Day, Ella Enchanted, The Proud Family, and Kim Possible: A Stitch in Time. In my eyes, Carol is a great character. She's noble, helpful, athletic, and she makes a remarkable mentor character. Also, Carol seems pretty similar to Robin Hood and Batman. However, I agree that it didn't seem very merry of her to think that the royal family didn't care about helping people. But thankfully, after meeting Sofia and seeing how much she liked helping folks, she realized that she judged the royal family a bit too quickly. Lastly to note, when Sofia saved Jane, Carol welcomed the princess as a member of her band to come out and help anytime she wants. Last but not least, we have Carol's second-in-command, Jane, voiced by Liliana Mimi. Best known for being Lucy Miller from the Santa Claus sequels, Myrtle Edmonds from the Lilo and Stitch sequels and TV series, Roxy from Winx Club, and she voiced Bridget in Undercover Fairies and Amy in Substitute Cedric. Now, unlike Carol and the other helping hands who help others because it's the right thing and out of kindness, Jane helps others in order to boost her image and feed her ego. When Carol invited Sofia to join the merry band, Jane immediately becomes jealous and she sabotages her at every turn in order to keep her from joining the band out of fear of losing her spot. Now, that behavior pretty much made me not like Jane, especially when she scornfully blamed Sofia for everything that happened after her identity was blown. Thankfully, Jane does reform after Sofia saved her and a baby raccoon from the river. And now let's move on to my final words. Overall, Carol of the Arrow is another great episode in the series. Despite a couple writing errors and a pretty familiar story, the CGI animation is breathtaking. The episode's song number was a lot of fun, and it shares a decent message about performing a good deed and being proud of who you are. Plus, Carol was a great new character, and Vivica A. Fox does an outstanding performance. And while Jane was mostly immature and conniving, I'm glad that she and Sofia established a strong bond together. Lastly, despite that we don't see the merry band again after this, I think Sofia makes a great addition to Carol's helping hands. As for my rating, I'll give it a 95% out of 100. Well, that's all for now. Join me next time where we'll look at an episode where Sofia and her friends put together an enchanted science project. Mustang Power.